In the story that the little girl told in the drawings that with which she illustrated it, of starting out on your ship on a sunny day, I want to go back to that as a metaphor in terms of the second picture, which was if you don't hit a rock. And of course, that's always a potential. These natural developments in a child and the development of curiosity and excitement about life and the exploration are often truncated in some way by a life event, by a traumatic event. Sometimes it's an illness, sometimes it's difficult conditions in the culture, a situation of war. We haven't had many on this land, but of course all over the rest of the planet there have been many times of war. It may be the reaction to a situation of divorce or a serious illness in the family. Those are all large and dramatic examples of those rocks which may truncate for a period of time the natural journey the child wants to take. There are also, of course, many subtle, smaller rocks in the path of a life's journey, which a child has to deal with frequently. And these very often are misconceptions about what is best for the child, whether it's in the family situation, whether it's in the school situation, whether it's in the culture. Some perhaps narrow and rigid attitudes about the development of the child nature, sometimes in the best intention, sometimes because the nature of the child is not understood, sometimes because in earlier times children were used as workforces, for instance. But any situation which seems to be collective and seems to be accepted by the collective, but perhaps may have for many children, or particularly sensitive children, not enough growth areas for them, where it's too narrow, too rigid a path, where the journey has to go between narrow, high wall rocks, instead of being able to explore the entire ocean. These are some of the subtler rocks which make it difficult in the child's path. The question, of course, always is, what do we do about those rocks? And it's a subtle and I think serious question in terms of both psychological work with children, educational work, and parenting. First of all, I think an awareness of them is important, to see that they're there, to see that they may be in our paths, in the child's path. But I think two different kind of approaches are taken in relationship to that. One is to get all the rocks out of the way, to try to clean the ocean up of the rocks. And of course that's a noble adventure, a noble task. And I think it has to do with making the society as clear and open and loving as possible, and to make the educational system as good as can be, and also the family situation. But the problem with that is somewhere, if that's taken as the only intention, that is to make the path easy, there's some consequences of that for the child. And that is that since there still will be rocks, and there probably aren't always naturally rocks in this long journey, the child is deprived at that point of how to be heroic around the rocks. And this, to me, is terribly important. I think very often about watching puppies, because you learn a lot about the animal nature of the child by watching animals. If you have a litter of puppies, 5 or 6, and watch them about 6 weeks old, just about before they're ready to take off on their own, they fight a lot. They tumble and they bite and they growl and they bite ears and they chase each other around the room and bite the tails. We never think that that's a negative conflict between all the puppies. We laugh, we watch them. And we know that when they yip at a tail being bitten, that they're not really being hurt that badly, that it's part of their developing their muscle tone, developing the capacity to take care of themselves when they leave the mother, developing the capacity to defend themselves, and also to strengthen their whole capacity to be sharp and aware. When we see children fight in a family, we have a very different reaction very often. We have all kinds of names for it: sibling rivalry, jealousy, and so forth. And of course, those are all perfectly good descriptions. But there's a tendency very often to back off from that and not see it as a natural strengthening of ego, a natural strengthening of even physical capacities to defend oneself. I recently watched a 3-year-old boy and his 1.5-year-old sister, and he's very skillful, as older children very often are, in taking your toys and sort of pushing her down slightly so it didn't look like he really pushed and she's on the floor. And if you watching her during the day, you could see the 1.5-year-old girl develop very strong capacity. She was trying it out first of all on the dog, but suddenly you saw her doing some very subtle things to the older brother too. She was already beginning to say no. She was already beginning to get a good thrust of the hand that would push him off. And a very delicate little girl she was, but you could see the beginning in her of self-defense. And not particularly in anger. It was just a matter of, well, let's see, now how can I deal with this situation, this rock of a stronger brother? How can I deal with that? So to allow for her to have the capacity to spontaneously respond to that out of herself, as well as she can, seems to me a very important aspect of life. It was a little vignette for me of the possibilities of not overprotecting, not taking all the rocks out, but allowing the rocks to be there, but strengthening the capacity, honoring the capacity that we all have to deal with the rocks. My image of that is always, as one works with a family, if one just try to make the family, the parents, better parents, in order to make it better and easier for the child, and doesn't strengthen the capacity of the child to deal with life's problems. Of course, it's a non-ending process. You then have to fix up the school, and you have to fix up the wife, and then you have to fix up the boss. And not always to the advantage of the child. I've seen children at a moment of realization that they themselves have the strength to resolve a problem, that they can deal with a situation, that they, if they have been in a conflictual situation, find a solution. The joy in finding their own strength in doing that is enormous, and sets, I think, a seed for much later recognition that can continue throughout a lifetime of, I can do it myself, at the deepest level of that. My belief is that we all have the capacity to do that for ourselves, to resolve life's problems, and very often aren't given an opportunity to do that. By that I don't mean just letting children alone when they need help, or letting children alone in very difficult, very traumatic situations. It's a balance. If they keep crashing to the same rock, then of course we want to reach out and help them, to find them, steer the course around the rock. That is, after all, the advantage of a mature and adult parental situation, school situation, or a culture that will say, we've taken the journey, and turn back and say, well, there is an easier way. But at the same time, never negating the exploration of the child themselves, to watch it, to guide it when it keeps making the same mistake and it doesn't have an option. We as adults can provide option, I think, as long as we really see it as option. If we don't say, take my way only. This is the best way. I've made it, and I know how to make it easier for you if you follow my way. So to allow the child the space to continue to explore whatever those difficulties may be, and let him find his own strength in the dealing with them, giving him opportunities to experience that, seems to be a very important aspect, again, of this total journey.